Jump to the main one. Here we go. And let's see, you're unmuted. Hello, hello.
Hola, hola.
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
Super.
Sounds
Hola.
good.
Hola, hola, ¿me escuchas? ¿Me escuchas?
Sounds good. I think we're good.
Cool.
All right. All right. Maybe want to, Panya, what do you think the sound? You want to turn it up a little bit? What do you think? You want to retweet the... Okay. Cool. It's on. It's live on the on X. Awesome. Great. Well, I think we're ready to go. Let's just sit and make sure. See this? But I think we're live. I think we're good. Sounds good. Awesome. Welcome everybody to Desert Dialogues Day 2. Super excited to be here live in Marfa. It's really happening right now. I'll give you a shot of the hall. There's a lot of people here walking through some great artist activations going on.
Yes.
You know, some amazing work that artists have worked on for a long time to bring it to Marfa and to show it to the community here. And it's awesome that, you know, I've been able to do my artist activation, which is actually a live stream show. So talking to other artists and collectors and curators and everybody that's come here out to Marfa and had the ability to broadcast it out live to the community. So
it's so cool that you are doing it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know.
Your setup is amazing.
Yes, the setup is so cool.
Very amazing.
Very,
awesome.
very, very nice.
So I am joined here by two amazing generative artists. And maybe you guys can both just introduce yourself with a quick introduction.
Cool. Okay. My name is Ana Carreras. I stepped into generative art 20 years ago. I've been doing research and projects on kind of non-linear narratives and interactive installations at the beginning, and that brought me to create artworks and generative stuff that explains some stories or tackles some concepts and the narrative behind that and how we can use algorithms and systems to explain that narrative and convey ideas in a visual way. So, yeah, mainly that's it.
Thank you for coming on. Mena?
Thank you for having us, first of all. My name is Jimena Buenavida, and I'm a generative artist. I was born and raised in Colombia, in South America, and I'm now based in the US. I'm a mother of two little girls, 6 and 8 years old, and they really inspire my creative process. I have a background in engineering and a master's in computer science, And I been a creative my entire life since age of 2. Have been always really inclined to express myself with some kind of creation, coloring, Play-Doh, sculptures. I stumbled upon art after many years of kind of putting it aside and feeling imposter syndrome. I worked in corporate America for more than a decade. And once I became a mom, I realized that I wanted to tap into my creative calling. And I found that the combination of Web3 and NFTs having an outreach to a community that was worldwide allowed me to parent my kids and also tap into my creativity and connect with a beautiful community. And I think we see an example here in Marfa of what these absolutely incredible community can build. And it's so inspiring to be here. So thank you so much for having us.
No problem. Thank you for coming. And Marfa's a pretty special place, right?
It is, absolutely.
It is.
Has
Yeah.
a magical something.
It's a mystical town,
Yeah.
mix of art and people and calmness and slowness
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
colors.
And just, walking around the town, I'm always just so, inspired every time I come here. Just artistically, it's almost like the town is an art piece in and of itself, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
What I enjoy the most is meeting people, because wherever you are walking around, you can meet people this weekend that it's interested somehow in generative art, doing it in the creative part or maybe enjoying it. And then the kind of conversations that arise are incredible and unique. So
Yes.
that makes it very, very special.
100%. So you both are working on a project that's in the works. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the project that you've been working on, and maybe just give us a little intro of what you've been up to.
You go for it,
Sure.
Molly?
So the project you're talking about is the Frida Kahlo collaboration. Very humble to be a part of an experience that has been life-changing. I've gotten a lot of questions this weekend on like, how the heck did you land at it? And the power of Twitter or X, however you want to call it, on this community, it's just beautiful. About the project, so many things to highlight, but I think what comes to mind is the time that we spent in Mexico City this summer. Anna, Alaida, and myself were invited and hosted and just welcomed in Mexico City in what it was an experience to immerse ourselves in the Frida Kahlo's world.
Yeah, we were welcomed by the family of
Wow.
Frida to their home, and we were able to see some objects and personal photographs from
Wow.
the family album. So
We read her letters that she wrote to her
Yes.
family.
Amazing.
so we really
amazing.
stepped into her personal life, not that much into the usual soap opera
Yeah.
and stories that goes around her. It was more getting into her personal and the person and who was her.
Yeah, and she had an amazing life, yeah, like, before we started recording this, I was talking to Anna about that my daughter has this book that is a children's book on Frida that she reads, and she really enjoys it, and I've enjoyed it, just even her life was just so full of hardship, in a lot of
Yes.
ways.
I think
and-
she was able to translate her pain into love.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, we know of Frida, the Frida that was strong, the Frida that empowered herself through the accident, her health issues. But to me, one of the most beautiful things of the trip was to be able to peel all these layers and get to how special she was in her heart and how much she cared for the people around her.
Yeah.
And that was something that touched me so deeply, to the point that I came back home and it even changed my interaction with my girls. Like it
Yeah.
deepened the way that I started even connecting with people and talking to people. I think she was somebody that was not afraid to dive into somebody's heart and herself. And it was, just beautiful to get to eat her food, the types of things that she liked to eat, the places that she loved to visit in Mexico.
Yeah, I think we grasped that idea of, it was for me too, this idea that, okay, even if she went into tough situations, she was able to manage to bring her art as an escape or as a catalyst of everything she was going on, and being creative in a way to just feel good and feel free and feel empowered. So that was really grasping that slide things were really, really nice.
I know, and her work is so it's amazing. There's nothing you could say that's less than that. But also it's interesting when I look at her work, because some of it is just very beautiful, and I think it's kind of follows maybe the traditional kind of aesthetics. But then there's a lot of it that is very weird, and it's
Yes.
and it's.
I think I would describe her work as very cathartic.
Yeah.
And that was the experience also. We got to see the museums, and one of the artifacts that I remember the most is the bed where she spent time, and it was adapted so that there was a mirror on the top she could paint herself, even being in bed.
Yes.
Same thing on a wheelchair. They designed a wheelchair where she had an easel so that she could also paint. So many lessons from her, but I think the ability to push through pain and still follow her creativity and still follow that passion that she had to find freedom of thought and freedom to feel.
Yeah, and passion, I think, is the word, because everything felt really passionate and very from the inside, from feelings and really, really, really deep inside, loving people around, close connections to family and friends.
And animals.
Yes.
Animals too, yeah.
She had an amazing heart, I think, generosity. We saw also that she had some sort of a charity system where she was helping families in need at some point and giving, just helping her community.
Yeah.
Very inspiring.
So how did it feel when you started this project to know that, okay, you have to, you're going to be working, and the family is involved in this, and you're going to Mexico City and learning more about Frida's life. One, how did it feel to know that you were going to kind of extend Frida's legacy in some ways? And then two, how did it feel, as far as, did the ideas come right away to you, as soon as you started thinking about it? Or did it take some time?
It took time, and it's been tough. I'm so nervous for this project. It's more like being in dialogue and bringing some of her passions or her thoughts or her, life into contemporary art world. And that dialogue and that conversation, it's it goes farther, because she was so implied with the community, as Jimena was mentioned, with the culture in Mexico, that it means that the dialogue must be extended to Mexican culture, maybe some ancient cultures there and everything. So it's wow, digging in that and trying to establish that dialogue. It has been hard for me, I must say, yes.
I think for me, I've gone through cycles. First, I was shocked. Huge responsibility,
Yeah.
We know historically what she represents worldwide for the art world, and it felt scary at first. But I have had the time to sit with the work and the code and go through many iterations for months and months and months. I have come to a place of realizing that she was not afraid to be herself and express herself. And if she wasn't, I think that's a lesson for me as well, to embrace these projects with the same like empowerment, confidence, and humility. And it's been just a beautiful experience. It's also, I do have to say that to be able to share this experience with two artists that I love and respect, such you and Alida, it's beautiful.
Yes, it's amazing. And how did you find, because Frida, she's a painter. How did you start to think about translating that into generative art? It's not like you're going from painting to painting, right? You're having to, translate paintings into generative art and systems. Mm-hmm. How did you go about thinking about that?
In my case, I wanted to bring really and dig into the medium. So I'm not going to represent something or trying to mimic some of her painting styles or whatever. I would love to bring really generative art medium and systems and talk about this experience from the inner soul of our own medium and our contemporary practice. So where I was digging is like, okay, how I can build some systems that have these kind of layers and layers of subtle drawings or small things that can talk about how many layers in her personality and life were there, and how we can connect the past, who she was, and the future through something visually that can explain and give us this idea and the narrative of what I felt when I was there and how I felt inspired by her work and her life. So yeah, that was my approach, like going into the medium, the intrinsic, well, it's super difficult to pronounce, intrinsic characteristics of what we can do with systems, with code, and with the generative medium, and trying to bring the narrative by layering some of these ideas and concepts.
How about you, Jimena?
Very similar. My goal wasn't to replicate her work. My goal has been to, I think, transmute the beautiful experience of getting to know more about her and using all the symbolisms and her feelings really towards life into my work. And one of the, I think, biggest concepts for me that I'm trying to portray on the project is the fact that she was somebody that did not follow a grid. And so I'm using grids actually on my project to remind ourselves of like that very lesson of stepping outside of the lines and bringing, the love that she wrote, like in letters, in the places that she visited, in the just beautiful culture of Mexico, with the colors, the vibrancy, that passion, that energy into the work. So, yeah, I'm with Anna. That wasn't trying to like replicate exactly what her paintings were. I'm just doing more like an expression of my own interpretation of what this experience has been.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah, I must say that going into this direction, I will be like creating some digital art, but then the prints will be augmented by hand, but doing some interventions on it. So it's like even another layer of giving kind of adding to the narrative and to the deep, and not understanding, but getting in dialogue with her life and her passion and her culture.
That's great. So when is this project, you think, going to be released or finished, or is there a date for that?
Jimena has
I think we're still kind of trying to like get into the details, but I think around December we're gonna start, releasing it. I think it's gonna have layers, sort of stages.
Yes.
But right now, I encourage everybody to follow our socials because we're sharing the snippets of what the experience has been. So there is videos and photos and just thoughts that we're sharing, just to kind of bring people into what this experience has been.
And is it been determined if this is going to be a long form project? Is it going to be one of ones? What's the format?
I think it's a long form.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great.
Every artist is creating a long form. I think Jimena will be the first one starting.
Yeah. I think for me, art is for everybody. And I think if you look at my kind of journey in like Web3, I try my best to make art affordable. I come from blue collar family. We didn't have, enough to kind of access purchasing art and things like that. And so it's very important for me to be inclusive. I think we're going to follow kind of those lines also to make this project accessible as much as we can.
It's amazing.
Yeah, sounds really nice.
It's great. So thank you both for coming over and talking about this. It sounds like really exciting, and I can't wait to see the final outputs.
It will
Thank
be
you for having us.
Yes, thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank
it's
you.
been amazing following your live streaming too.
Thank you.
So
No, I'm
thanks for
so
that.
honored to be able to do this and to sit down with amazing artists like yourself and to talk about art. And I 100% agree. The world needs more art. So the more we can get art out there and we can get it in more people's hands, different price points, for different people, I think all that is great. The world needs more art, not less. So
I think
let's get it out
totally.
Art has changed my life, and if I can plant those seeds in people, that
definitely
that'll make me very
happy. It's for
happy.
everybody. That's the thing. It's not. Art shouldn't be just something that rich people have on their walls. I feel like it should be something that is accessible, and I would love to see people from all backgrounds be able to get into art collecting and collect. And I think that's what generative art allows us to do,
and
right?
Digital art, you can
Digital
always
art, exactly.
right-click save. So
Exactly.
that's
That's something that
everyone
was
to
it was
enjoy
really. I posted on X, I think last week, about that, and it just kind of came to my mind was that all this blockchain art is really by its nature public art.
Yes.
Totally
agree.
Which is kind of amazing because for the whole history, it's like
Everyone
people make
can
art.
enjoy. Everyone can enjoy,
And then
look at
it's
it.
if it sells for a lot of money, it goes into a collector's a house or museum, or it gets crated
Yes.
away in Switzerland, and no one ever sees it unless a museum picks it up. But it's amazing in this space of the fact that even the most expensive collections are accessible and everyone can view them.
Yes, you can
And
enjoy
experience
them, and then you even can collect and support artists doing that.
Yes.
And spreading art.
Yeah, and that's
So
what
that's an amazing
I
opportunity.
it kind of crystallized in my mind. And
Yes.
I think the collectors in this space and that are supporting artists are really doing a service for the world, really,
Yeah.
by supporting artists, because they're allowing for more art to get out there, which is in the format we're releasing is public art, right?
Yes.
So
I also think that if we can inspire other artists to also join the space and realize that you just kind of have this audience of people around the world that are interested in you as an artist and support you, that would be another amazing milestone.
Yeah.
To have more artists joining us and
100%.
learning code and more women learning code
Yes.
and all these
100%.
amazing things.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing, and I think I never thought when I learned to code that, because I learned to code just kind of more, I actually taught myself. I wasn't like, really classically trained in that way, but I never thought that you could, learn to code through art. But it's like now I totally know that you can,
Yes.
and it's a great path
It's
to
an
do it.
amazing path because
Yeah.
it's like a different one.
Yeah.
Not the,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't start with like data
Yes.
structures and algorithms.
More
you could
creative
just start
ways,
creating.
yeah.
And that's the thing with a lot of that of programming and all this stuff is that learning anything, I think, if you can get someone making something, whether it's an app, whether it's art, whether it's anything, music, if you're learning music,
Yeah.
you get them to experience the act of creation, which is going to get them more motivated to continue learning.
100%.
I
And
tell you-
everyone can find their own path to learn how
Yeah.
to learn more and get inspired and get creative and
Yeah.
learn even more. Yeah.
And I tell you a beautiful quote unquote side effect of this project, which is I've been working on it for months and months and not showing really anyone except my two little girls, 6 and 8 year old. And huge imposter syndrome at the beginning. The first time I show them the work, they are like, you can paint lemons with code? You can do all, like letters and my 8 year old is, I'm ready to learn how to code, mom. So as a side
Wow,
effect of the
yeah.
project, I've been working on a little course on how to code or how to teach an 8 year old that doesn't
Yeah.
really know yet like mathematics to a deeper level, how to code. So
Yeah,
if we can inspire others to also get like curious about like, how do I teach myself?
Yeah.
The world is so open now with ChatGPT
Yeah.
and YouTube
I-
learning.
100%. Like I have a 1 year old and a 4 year old, so they're not that age yet. But when they do get a little older, I totally like think back to how, in school they kind of taught me, and I think I would just want to tweak it for them, like, and make sure that I think it's really important, especially with math and things like that, to not just give formulas and that type of thing. Have people start building things,
Yes,
See
let
the
them be
usage of that.
creative so they
Yeah.
find their own way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because like it's funny. Like I remember back, and I remember trigonometry. I just hated trigonometry, and I never wanted to learn trigonometry. But I remember there was a hackathon I went to. Maybe I don't know. It was a while ago, 10 years ago, and the team I got on, we decided we wanted to build a Nerf sentry gun.
Ooh.
Like with the like the Nerf, meaning the Hasbro toy, like it's a toy. I don't know if you've ever
Okay.
seen, you know what I'm talking about, but
No, I
yeah,
don't think
they're
so.
it's basically like a toy sentry gun, but it's electric.
Okay.
So it has a motor in it to shoot
Okay.
the darts, the foam darts.
Okay.
But one thing we did is we ended up taking Xbox Connect and hooking it up to skeleton tracking data.
Yes, I remember that.
And then mounting a basically a gyroscope sensor on top of the sentry gun, and right there, that's trigonometry to line up. The skeleton tracking data to there.
Cool.
And
And
I
that
learned it
was-
like that.
Yeah.
Like it's like
your opportunity, like
Exactly.
I want to make this. Oh, I need to learn that.
no problem.
Okay, no
So
problem.
that's,
Got
I
it.
just think maybe that's not everybody. Maybe certain people are more, but for me, I know, and people, like me, I know that's how I have to learn something is I have to know, okay, I want to build something, and then, okay, that's why I need that bit of math, or I want to do some art. And I think in generative art that happens a lot is you have to,
I think
you
so.
have to, okay, I kind of have this idea in my head, but I need to learn the math, or I need to know the technique.
My
to do it.
6-year-old had the perfect sentence, and she said, "The art guides you to do the next art piece."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
And that-
teaching at university, and I can't tell you that my students start I'm teaching generative art to them and how to code it, and they start being afraid of code and the mathematical part, and it's like, no.
Yeah, no.
It's not that hard. One, you have the motivation and you want to do something and create a project and to draw something, then the rest drives you because you get involved, you get motivated.
Exactly,
and you
too,
get
and
there.
And on that note too, it's, I think a lot of, especially in generative art, there's always a temptation that to kind of reduce the art to technology or the
The mathematical
the
part of it.
mathematics, or like how technically advanced something is, and like which I think is really cool, like to see as like an artist. But I think it's important that some really great projects like in generative art can be simple. They don't have to be super technical, right?
Totally agree. It's like you don't need a super technical background or a super technical code to create something that it's visually meaningful and
Yeah.
can relate to the audience and relate and tell stories and have a narrative. So yeah, that's the point. Just get people
Yeah.
inspired.
It's
and
not a tech
let
demo.
them-
It's a
yes,
it's an art
that's it.
piece.
It's an art piece. And you have to feel it, not like being super technical.
I feel like this year has been for me exactly what you guys are saying in terms of that exploration. I went to college for engineering and did terrible because I didn't realize I had a ton of learning disabilities like ADHD, dyslexia, and back then, no, like there wasn't diagnosis
Yeah.
or like a lot of help on that regard. And it took me a while to start creating art with code because I was very insecure about my technical abilities and mathematical abilities. And I didn't know that I had, just my brain was wired differently to
Yeah.
learn differently. And it was only when I started to just let myself create, like from a very basic standpoint,
Yeah.
that I was like, okay, I can make a circle, then I can make a line,
Exactly.
then I can make the move, then I can create the next thing, and then one thing led to the next, to the next, to the next, and that's how it's been.
No, I had the same experience too, and I was like starting, and I know exactly that feeling of you feel like you're inadequate because you don't know. For me, it was shaders. Like I still haven't done a project on shaders. I don't know anything about shaders. Like maybe one day I'll learn shaders, but I was like when that happened, I just was like, oh man, I got to learn shaders like before I can create art. But that's not the right thing to do.
No.
Like that's not. That is a bad temptation because it's not true. You don't need to learn. If you want to learn it, but you don't need it to
Yeah.
be a great artist. You can use
Even with
simple
colors.
tools.
If there's a conceptual or a creative reason, go for it. But
Yeah.
if it's not, just leave it.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the same with colors for me. The experience was at the beginning, I was like, it has to be mute color. And obviously I respect anybody's choices of color. I'm not,
Yeah.
it was just my own experience that I was like, I have to be mute, I have to be dark, I have to be, and it was sort of like also like on my own voice, like be quiet, be the good little girl, don't like ruff anybody's feathers. And then one day I started watching my kids during the pandemic using explosion of colors and vibrancy, and I'm like, why don't we try this? And it's been a beautiful exploration of like, you don't have to be muted if you don't want to, you can, but you can learn shaders or like do P5Js and just vanilla basic shapes, or just let kind of the project or the journey lead you into the next thing.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think it's conversations like this that is just
Yes.
amazing to be here.
Conversations that
And-
leaks makes worthy to be here with
Exactly.
the
And,
community and with you.
that's why I'm doing the show. And
Yes,
things like
and
that.
it's
So,
amazing.
so thanks to everyone for tuning in. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break. Thanks, Anna and Jimena, for joining. And I'm super excited about your project. And best of luck to finishing it up. And
Thank
can't wait to
you.
see the final outputs and all that. So thank you
for holding the
joining.
space for us.
Thank
You're
you.
No
amazing.
problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be back.
Bye.
2, 3. We're check 1, 2. Yeah.
Check, check. Check 1, 2.
Check, check.
Check, check.
All right, we're good. We are live. Welcome back, everyone, to Desert Dialogues, part of day 2. Here with a bunch of fine gentlemen over here. That last conversation was amazing. Anna and Frida, Anna and Jimena, their Frida project is amazing, and so looking forward to that. So thanks again to them both for joining and chatting about that project. I have a few artists here and also gallerists here, which is pretty awesome. Actually, I've never had a gallerist on the podcast or on a show, so it's pretty interesting to have you on. So
Thank you.
hold on, we're getting some feedback really quick. Uh-oh, that's not good. I turn it down a little.
If we move the speakers that way. Harvey's out. He's got an
There we go.
important call to take. Oh.
It's fine. All right, we're getting some feedback, but we're back. So let's kick it off by maybe just going around and doing a little bit of intros. You two have been on the podcast, but I don't think everyone knows Steven, so maybe start with you.
Hey, so I'm Anthony Heileman, generative artist. Go under the name Mount Vitruvius. Mostly focus on pretty abstract work. Yeah, a bit of a throwback to like the 1950s and 60s kind of abstract works. Yeah, quite illustrative. That's my style.
Hi, I'm Harvey Rayner, generative artist. Yeah, my brain's not working this morning. I didn't have much sleep last night, but
So it's all good.
so what do I do, Stephen?
You have to ask the gallerist what you do. Yeah, that's actually
Yeah,
pretty good.
So I'll intro for Harvey.
Yeah.
Translate in
Like
gallery
this guy,
speak.
mostly generative. Recent foray into figurative PFPs with Chefwalker, but yeah, my heart is with abstract, long form generative art. I think.
And
that's what
maybe both of you could say your art blocks projects. You know that.
so yeah, I'm known mostly, I guess, for Fontana.
Which is amazing. I love that.
Yes,
Thanks, dude.
great
Thanks.
project.
I appreciate it.
I did most recently Trichromatic.
Yes,
Yeah, which is
Another great project.
also
That's
freaking
great.
amazing.
You're very kind.
and how about you?
I'm Steven, curate for Virtu Fine Art. Got into this world like 3-4 years ago, fell in love with NFTs, their potential, and wanted to do everything possible to help sustain artists, allow them to grow, experiment with them. Have got the opportunity to work with Harvey direct, bring the work to art fairs, educate people, talk a lot about sustainability. Maybe not the most hype things that people are excited about, but that's what excites me.
It's awesome. So I guess we could start with just talking about maybe we're just talking about we're here in Marfa. It's not easy to get here. What brought you out here? What are you looking forward to for this weekend?
So it's a pretty long trip from London.
Yes,
I'll be honest.
exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty arduous. But quite frankly, I mean, there's nowhere else that I can get to hang out with this many people that I really connect with in this space. There's this incredible Slack that a lot of the generative artists share called the Generative Artists Slack. I'm not sure if it's publicly particularly known about.
I think people know about it.
Probably.
You mean the Gen Art Club?
Yeah, Gen Art
Yeah,
Club.
yeah.
And I very rarely get to meet those people in real life.
Yeah.
And so for me, getting to come out here and get to hang out with Harvey and everyone else together, that is 100% worth the trip.
Yes.
I mean, there are a few good generative artists in London. A lot of generative artists that I really respect are in London, but even then, we don't get to hang out all that much. So this just feels like a great opportunity to have all of those people that I massively respect and love being around together in one place. And then the opportunity of that kind of connecting with all the collectors and the opportunity for people to put on crazy experiences, like Remnant's experience here, taking his Art Blocks project and turning it into something physical.
I know.
What an awesome experience, you know?
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
Really just a wonderful example of something that can kind of work so well in this environment. Yeah, that's why I'm here, why I'll probably be here next year, and why I was here last year. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that I didn't come until last year. That was the first year that I was ever here.
Well, better late than never, as they say.
Exactly.
How about you, Ari? What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Nothing specific, just being here. You know,
Yeah.
this is the best part of my job, I think. I mean, it's important that an artist networks. It's just great that it's fun in this space to do so, and just this location, so magical and easy to meet people. Yeah, I don't have anything planned. I just want to kind of like drift and, you know, I don't know. I already kind of know quite a few people, so it's just so easy just to drift around and chat. So yeah, I got nothing planned. I haven't really looked at the schedule, to be honest. Just bumping into dudes like these two guys. That's why I come
Well, that's the
here.
magic of
Yeah.
it. How about you, Steven?
Yeah. To build the relationships, it's like so much fun. Put names to faces, meet new people, learn about the new projects coming out. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's like we're so online, so digital, and I think that trend is going to continue to go up and up and up. So getting the opportunity to meet with some of the most passionate people in the world about everything art is just very unique opportunity. So it excites me year after year. Looking forward to just hanging out, you know, nothing in particular, but just seeing it, soaking it all in. That's what it's all about for me.
That's great.
Actually, just want to add to that. Like, if you think all four of us, right, we all met each other and really probably formed our friendships either here or an in real life thing. You know,
Yeah.
you make connections online, but they're never really enduring until you've done this, right? So,
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because like you meet people here online, and then you just like, I don't know. Then it's like hard to translate to their in real life persona. You're just like, oh, I don't know. You start to think of certain people as their profile pictures, right, or their avatar, right? But it's great to actually see people in person and connect, you know, which is awesome. What do you think about? I want to just kind of maybe just as open up the floor to, you know, I think the generative art space in general has had like, you know, it's been a roller coaster last couple years, with ups and downs, and you know, as far as I say this is like from a market point of view, but that's not the only point of view. What do you think? You know, I guess, where do you think we're going? What are you excited about in generative art? You know, in the next year or two. Where do you think we're all going to go? If anybody?
Well, I guess I can go first. It's more of a personal experience for me, but you know, I was doing this, you know, since I was a kid, really, and no
Yeah.
one was interested in it. back
Exactly,
then, right?
yeah.
It was just, hey, cool, you're making interesting stuff on a computer, and our work was kind of just cornered as this thing that was computer art that was somehow different.
Yes.
You know, and so for me, this massive acceptance of what it means to use the computer as a medium over the last few years has just been an incredible change, because I feel like I've been fighting for that my whole life, to have that as something that's recognized.
Do you think it's really accepted? So it feels that way in this community, but you know, I don't know if it's and I'm curious on Steven, your point of view on that. If it's really if it really is accepted, you know, that widely.
Well, so, I mean, I'm talking very much from nothing, right? You know,
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
shunned, and even just a small step towards that direction feels quite monumental. So yeah, there's been a bit of, you know, a sort of, I guess, push away from some of the hype that's happened over the last couple of years. But I look at what I'm doing now, and I'm putting on a gallery show, right, at the beginning of next year. And like for me, if I rewind to the clock 10 years and look at what I was doing then, you know, it was a dream, right,
Yes.
to get to that point. And so for me, that feels really special.
Definitely.
And even if, you know, we are in this kind of up and down sort of cycle, it just feels like the perspective that people have on this medium has changed, and it's going to stick in that regard.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the great stuff will still continue. And
Well, even on that note, I think I agree with you. I think it is trending in the right direction, 100%. And I think of mediums like photography, right? Like photography for a long time was kind of viewed as, not a true art form, right? And I think
Yeah.
over time it developed into now in museums and things like that. And I think digital art I hope is on that trajectory, right? To become more accepted in the mainstream. And, but some artists, even I've had both of you on the podcast, they kind of will say that, oh, I don't care about that mainstream adoption or anything like that. So that's another point of view that I appreciate as well. So, yeah.
I could speak on it a little bit. Just to start, it's like generative art's a pretty technical medium in a few different avenues, whether it's starting with crypto, going down the rabbit hole of NFTs, then understanding the fundamentals of blockchain, and then maybe you start to get into the weeds of like digital art. And the culmination of that, and what excites all of us, especially like supporting art blocks, is really exciting. But in terms of acceptance, I think it's really hard to understand. And without education, moving into new audiences, showing it as if generative artists like Vera Molnar was back in the 70s and 80s by printing an output out, framing it up, that's a lot easier to decipher. It's a lot easier to understand. So I think there's room for so much more growth. There's so much room to take this medium and change it and dissect it and contextualize it in such a interesting and fascinating way. Like, to me, it still just feels like we're just getting started. Like, maybe the market goes up, maybe it goes down, but if you're building, you're a real artist, you take your practice really seriously, like, the acceptance is going to come maybe a decade from now, maybe 2 decades, but now is the time to like really lock in and just go after your vision, go after your dreams, and set them in stone. Because I really believe that generative art has a place to, like, it's obvious to me, it's here to stay. The institutions are coming, like more collectors are starting to begin to understand it. It's just about how do we like continue spreading the word, moving the message forward, and working on projects that are just genuinely interesting. Like, maybe not the most profitable, maybe not the most hyped, but looking at the world in a different lens. That's what I'm most interested in. That's my approach to acceptance.
Yeah.
I think if it was possible to know where generative art would be in 3 years' time, then it probably just wouldn't be the exciting place it is to work, right? And I would probably want to be somewhere else. It's just, I don't think there's another medium within art where you can say that. You can generally say it. It's really impossible to know where we're going to be in 3 years' time, how this is going to evolve. So, yeah, it feels like to me, it feels like we're at a really still, it's kind of a cliche to say it, but we're really early in a new evolutionary process within.
Definitely.
So, and that's where every artist, I think, wants to be, right? We're lucky that we've found ourselves in this little niche. There may be other sections of the art world like that which I'm not aware of, but it's certainly generative art seems like it's that.
Well, I think, sorry, can I add to that?
Of course.
One of the things that really excites me, so throughout my whole life, I've been fighting for this idea that the computer as a medium is one of the most unbelievably creative tools that exists today. And there's always classically, I think, in many walks of kind of like business or work or things that involve computers, there's been this sort of separation between those who program and those who design, or those who program and those who create art. And there's been this weird breaking up of these things where somehow the computer is just the way that you implement an idea, not the place that you can have it and make it something that's real. And one of the things that I've been so excited about over the last sort of 3 years, seeing pretty much what Art Blocks kind of started, really, is the amount of people now who are creative programmers. Yeah. There's so many people posting interesting works in progress on Twitter, right? It's this whole mental shift of saying, actually, you know what? This is a really creative medium, and that's what makes me so excited about this.
For sure.
Because you can see that stuff's starting to change, not from necessarily an acceptance perspective, but from the people that are actually making it and caring about it and enjoying it, and you can see people coming into this.
I just want to say too, like, it's possible now. You know,
Yeah.
like back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, like I think a lot of people in that situation were just doing it because they loved it, or it was a hobby, or it was part of their job. And now there's a realized, I mean, you guys are living proof of it. Like, it's possible to make a career as a generative artist, way more possible than it ever was in the past. And that's exciting. Like that.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really amazing, and I'm curious, Steven, your point of view on this. Like, I think this comes down to also like displaying art, digital art, and I personally think we haven't like really 100% discovered the best way to display digital art. We talk about prints and things like that. That's definitely one way of doing it. But I'm curious your take on you know. Do you think that the display, not even the technology, but just how we display digital art and generative art could improve? Like, where do you see to kind of get more people interested in understanding it, right? And to experience it and to get it?
For sure. I'm interested in many mediums. So how we understand generative art can be in a variety of different ways, as a system, as a singular output, as a print, as a painting, as a plotter. So it depends on what kind of approach the artist is taking and what kind of intentions they have. But at the same time, and maybe I'm biased, but I look at computer screens all day. I look at my phone all day. I like to look at my art and the texture aspect of it in tangible mediums. Like, that's just my preferred. So whenever I see something that comes out and there's a hybrid approach to it, where it's like the artist has in mind of this tangible idea, but you can collect and distribute it through NFTs, it makes a lot of sense to me, and it gets me excited. So I personally collect with that in mind, and I like to curate in that hybrid approach as well. I just don't think it matches the quality of digital screens. Like, I just don't think the colors could be off. The aspect ratio plays a big part. The constraints are like really defined when you take screens into play, and I think it's tough.
In like screens are only really manufactured in one aspect ratio. You can find maybe some square screens, but there's not many of them being manufactured, and they're really hard to like source and all that type of stuff.
I spent so long trying to work out how to get an extremely high quality screen at a different aspect ratio. You can do it. It costs a ridiculous amount of money, and the quality is just not as good as the mass produced screens. It's nuts.
It is wild on that, and that's even, I'm surprised more people are not looking into projectors. I mean, projectors, but again, it's hard to even, in that case, like I've looked into that. I don't know if you have looked into it, but
Contrast ratio sucks.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. So, and you can kind of do tricks to change the aspect ratio on a projector, but it's tricky,
I think you have to just look at those as something you design the piece for. And I think the gap is coming down for screens, right? So, take your modern iPhones, take your modern laptops. We've got P3 color gamuts now, which are far, far closer to what you kind of experience in print, like retina level displays. So you're ending up at like a reasonably high fidelity. So like for my most recent work, it's actually been a lot closer, I would say, in terms of the print experience and the screen-based experience, especially if you're looking on a decent monitor. I mean, obviously, it's dependent on what device you have. But you have that much closer tie now, I think, between those two things. I mean, you go back to when I started and it was on an IBM 286, and you were writing, 56 blocks by like 24 to the screen with a like 256 color palette, right? I mean, it's an insane step beyond kind of what we started with there. And I think those gaps are going to sort of close up quite rapidly. I mean, one of the things that I find really difficult with my work, so I always do print and the digital version sort of simultaneously. So every piece you can get a print if you go on my site with the token, and you can like literally have it sent to your house, and they'll be numbered, and that is a big part of the experience.
How do you feel about we'll finish your thing, and then I want to follow up on one point.
Well, so the thing I was going to say is that like it kills me that is not the way that most people experience the piece, because that is literally how I think about the work.
Yes,
it's finding that perfect balance between those two sides. And I want everyone to get this experience of the print, right? So it's tricky, and so it's nice to hear your perspective on this. Because on one hand, you don't want to kind of limit this idea that people can sort of buy, we have this global ownership model, anyone can come and kind of engage and, pick up a piece, and then I can ship the print, and that whole ecosystem is so powerful. But it does nullify that beautiful physical experience of something that I want people to have. So it is fascinating to hear your point of view on it from that regard.
Yeah, I think one thing that on that is that I think this is fascinating debate around prints or just physical representations of digital art or the NFT. And my thing has evolved in this over time. Like when I released Piece of Me, every one of those came with a free print. And I said at the time I was only going to issue one print per token, right? And I'll never do it unless it's like provably destroyed. Then I'm never gonna issue another one. But I have to say that my thinking has evolved on this over the years, and now I am more in the camp that I don't put much value on the print. I look at it as the print is almost like a photocopy, right? Like if you have like a photo for like a film negative, you could think of it like that, and you can use that negative to make different representations or prints from the negative, but it's not the negative. So I think, at least for me, the value is in the NFT, in the code stored on the blockchain in the case of an on-chain project, and the prints are really, I don't anymore assign value to them, and I'm okay to issue more prints to other token holders in the future and things like that.
You can go, Harvey. I have some comments on that.
Oh, I was just gonna. I often think how many of my collectors or your collectors, whoever, actually have experienced the work other than on a phone.
Yeah, totally.
And like when I went into the Art Blocks house yesterday and saw Zach's work up just as you go in the door on the right, there was a piece there, and I was blown away, and it was almost like a completely different project, right?
100%.
I looked at it for such a long time, and I thought, I've only seen his work. I've only seen this project on my phone.
Yeah.
And it was like 10% of the visual information was there on the phone compared to the print. The print was just dimensions richer. Yeah.
On that, memories of digital data, like it was on display last year, and I literally saw that for the first time on a big screen. I immediately bought like 2 of them because I was like, this is amazing, like, and just didn't do it. But what was your thought on the the
I used to be very maximal in like how I valued things, how I approached certain ownership models and tokenization of things, and how we understood physical versus digital. And I've kind of winded it all back over the last year or two, because I think the most fascinating part of all of this is that there is no solution. I don't know if there ever will be a solution, because I think every artist will take their own approach. They have their own ideas of how they value things, and that's cool. That's interesting to me, because it just provides an entire different interpretation to every single project that you do. So anyone, in my opinion, that out there is saying like this is the way to do it, I don't necessarily agree with, because I think there's room for so much exploration. We're so new in this. I think we still will be new in this for the next decade. So it's interesting to hear your valuation of how you understand your own work, and how other people would interpret that, and how other artists would approach it.
I think, I totally agree. I don't think there is a fixed solution, but I do think it's really important for artists to take some control over the presentation of their work. Of course. Yeah. Like one of the things that I wasn't super happy with when I've launched pieces before was just the experience of seeing it on certain websites. Like on Art Blocks at the time, the visual experience of exploring the algorithm was pretty poor. It's miles better now. But when I launched the last piece, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to build a much better experience of exploring the algorithm specifically for that reason, because I don't want people to go, oh, well, it looks, crappy on this tiny little thing on my phone.
Yeah.
It'll encourage you to say, hey, go on your desktop, make this full screen.
There's a lot of projects like that I feel like if people saw them bigger, and with more detail, they would think differently about the project.
Yeah, and so that's why doing this physical exhibition for me is a really important change to try and really control that experience that someone's having in a much more sort of accurate way.
I can't scream about it enough. Like, presentation is everything. If you don't present the work in the way that you want everyone to see it, everyone to understand it, you can't complain that you're not getting sales or that nobody's seeing it, because that is the one thing that you have the most control over. And that's why I say get a website, present the work how you want it to be understood, how you want it to be seen, provide the descriptions, provide curatorial notes on what you find interesting, because if you want to look at work through OpenSea, through Foundation, through marketplaces, you're just another toad with a hat on, I mean, at the end of the day, right? It's just, you're a small fish in the pond, but on your own website where you can control all those things, like, people can really see how you value it, how it's supposed to be presented. Like, that is everything. I couldn't, but it's funny because traditional art takes that much more serious. Like, that is such a focus of, like, get your website in check, get your CV in check, make sure that you have your press and your interviews, well cataloged. But digital art, which you would think is like 100% more important to do that, nobody does it. Like,
yes,
it's fascinating to me.
And on that note, about displaying in presentation, and maybe this is beyond that, but I just think it's interesting with your experience doing fine art and then also being in digital art. I'm curious if what you think, how do we get to a point where someone can walk into your gallery and they have no idea about NFTs or anything like that, and then they see a piece on the wall in your gallery and they're able to just buy a piece without having any, or feeling confident enough to do that, right? Where do we need, how can we get to a place like that? I don't know if you have the answer, but yeah.
I don't have the whole answer, but I think it's it just takes time. It takes education, right? You got to teach people. You got to explain to them. You got to lay it all out without having to set up a wallet, without having to explain how blockchain. They'll get there. We're just really early in it. We're in Marfa. We came from all these different places in the world because we all believe in this thing. We have faith in it. And at the end of the day, that's what art is about to me. It's like having a little belief, having a little faith. If everything is financial, everything is monetary, we won't ever make it there. So I think it's mostly education. It's teaching people, explaining to them, rather than just hoping that they fall down the rabbit hole and they can learn it. And there's not even that many resources,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough question, but
That's great. And I want to talk to you, Harvey. You've done work on a lot of different chains, really. If you just did, is it only two? You only did on ETH mainnet or have you done L2 on ETH? As well?
Shape, yeah.
You did Shape as
I
well,
just done Shape, on L2, so it's 3, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't you do ordinals as well?
Yeah, so ordinals, ETH1,
Bitcoin, yeah.
And ETH2.
What do you think? And I'm curious your thoughts on that of I think there's different camps of people who are, some people are very much I'm only going to do a project on ETH mainnet because I feel confident that will be around. Do you think about that? Or is it when you're going to different chains or anything like that? How do you view that when you're?
I do think about that, but I have a kind of a little bit of a hot take on that. I actually feel that the things that get preserved are the things that we care about. So, for instance, Pollock might paint he painted with household emulsion. If you just look at a skirting board that's been painted 20 years ago, you see what happens to that paint rail, just disintegrate. But we keep it alive because we care about it. It has historical importance. So, I think even the projects that have been dropped on chains that maybe don't survive, if those projects that are important that we care about in 10 years time, we'll move them. However, having said that, I still think if you can put stuff fully on chain, you might as well, right? Because it's just making everybody's life easier. In the same way, if an artist has a good uses good quality paints and uses a good canvas, then it just makes everybody's life easier. And I think about it. I thought about it a lot with Shape. that was the main kind of. I didn't get a lot of pushback, but people think, oh yeah, another L2. But that the whole philosophy behind that, I think, is very interesting. The fact that there's a counter argument to have them work on L1, and the fact that it could just become too expensive.
Yes.
To move the stuff around in 50 years' time, it just I think
good point.
I think Han calls it the art just becomes orphaned because you can't move it out of your wallet because the gas fees will be astronomical. So, there's an idea that the L2 will, it's a necessary sort of like part of ETH's evolution and the success story. If we don't have L2, then we don't have ETH as we actually really want it. So, yeah, and like I think the first part of the question, like I think one of the big things that can hold us back is like a tribal mentality. You get comfortable on a chain, and the culture is different from chain to chain. So you get comfortable, and it's just human nature to be tribal, to think these are my people, and then and I've done it myself. I know when ordinals first came around, I was like, fuck ordinals. This is it's not. It's
then
not
you made a project called Chat Fucker. So
yeah. I can say that word.
Was that a?
I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was great, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
That's one of my favorites.
Was it fucking great? Yeah,
It was fucking awesome.
So,
it was amazing.
Yeah. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. I'm not actually hungover. I'm just really tired.
Sure. That's what they all say.
So, where was I going with this? Somebody else can talk while I think about this.
I love Chatfucker. We were talking about it long before it was published, and just a completely different approach to generative work. Like we always go down the abstract and geometric for a lot of reasons, and totally understand that. But when he showed it to me, and it was this very playful, figurative things that we can relate to in the human world, these tangible objects is fascinating to me.
Well, it's really embracing the whole degen culture that we, I think we exist in that space, like I think a lot of us here, we are definitely more art focused and stuff, but you can't escape that side of our space that we release into, right? Like, and that whole tribal, they just rotate to the next thing, right? They're in meme coins now. Maybe they'll come back over here. Who knows? But it's funny how you kind of you in that project, you almost like you kind of invited them in, like that culture, but you also made a little bit of a mockery of it as well. Like it was kind of a both and, which was amazing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's no better way to make a comment about PFP than making a PFP collection. I learned a lot. That when I immersed myself in the degen way of doing things, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about promoting projects in ways I would never normally consider. So, and at the end of the day, whatever community you get connected to, people are people wherever you go.
Yes.
And there's good people everywhere. They wear certain kind of masks and use certain language, but at the end of the day, they're all human beings. So I always keep that in mind. And I had a lot of prejudice about, like the degen culture, the PFP culture. But as soon as I kind of jumped into it, I'm like, oh, actually, there's some really legit ideas here. There's a lot of fun. I love the sort of self-deprecating attitude, spirit of it. It was unpretentious. Just the fact that people call themselves degenerates. I think it's really healthy.
It was a really playful piece of work. I loved just the subtle fun that you poked at so many elements of the community, and it worked. It was awesome.
It's amazing.
I hope so. Yeah, there's more to come, by the way. Yeah.
Round two?
There's some. Oh, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, that was always the plan. Yeah, there's some fuckers in the works.
You heard it here first,
Batch
folks.
2 has been conceived.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining and having this chat. It's really great, and I'm so glad I'm able to, get this group together, which probably we wouldn't be able to do, or I wouldn't even think to do. You know what I mean? Having you, Steven, with a couple artists on, I think that's the magic of what I'm trying to do here, and I think getting different perspectives of different community members is really great, and interesting things come of it, like happened in this conversation. So thank you all for joining and chatting, and
Thanks for having us.
enjoy
Thanks,
the
dude.
rest of the weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
I'll be back with another group of fine artists or collectors soon, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break, so cheers. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Moonshots, spend it on the have-nots. Money, we make it. Before we see it, you take it. Oh, make me wanna holler the way they do my life. Yeah. Make me wanna holler the way they do my life. This ain't living, this ain't living. No, no, baby, this ain't living. No, 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 no. Inflation, no chance to increase finance. Bills pile up, sky high. Send that boy off to die. Oh, make me wanna holler the way they do my life. Yeah, make me wanna holler the way they do my life. Oh, baby. La 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 Everybody thinks we're wrong, but mother, who are they to judge us? Mother, mother, simply cause we wear our hair long. Mother, mother, ooh.
water. You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Desert Dialogues, day 2. I got another session for you all here at home and in the hall here. I got a couple amazing generative artists and then also a prolific collector to my left.
That's a generous term, Raven, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. No problem. So maybe we'll start on my right with Lars. Maybe just introduce yourself a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lars. I'm a generative artist based out of New York. Currently signed with ArtX Code, as is Luke over here, my buddy. And
That's right.
yeah, I'm really focused on systems art, making art with code. Really love to think about how light travels through space and replicating that using software. And really happy to be here in Marfa with you.
Amazing. And to my left?
Yeah, hi. I'm Luke. I'm a generative artist with ArtX Code. I focus...
Both with ArtX Code.
Yeah.
Is
We're
Sophia or
fans.
Tony here?
They're not, unfortunately.
Okay.
They wanted to be, but...
Okay. I didn't see them, so I was wondering. But
Yeah, they're missed.
shout out to Sophia and Tony.
Yeah.
Great.
But I focus on making a lot of physical work with algorithms. So I've done some past projects with ceramics in Marfa, and then also seating arrangements, making some physical chairs with a CNC machine, doing some embroidery here in Marfa with Matt Jacobson, Stitchables. And
Numbers in Motion.
Numbers
is
in
Matt,
Motion.
Matt's
Yeah.
artist name.
It's been a lot of fun. Happy to be here. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me on.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Philip. I am apparently a prolific collector, but
You
in all
are. You have a
honesty,
great
humble
collection.
collector. Also a pediatric dentist. So I actually do own works from both Lars and Luke here. So it's a pleasure to be up on the stage with them today.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's great that I met you through Proof, and we've been members there. So I think this is the beginning of that. So it's been great
Yeah.
to see you at events and things like that.
Absolutely. It's always
so-
been one of the most fun things in recent memory, just being able to go out to these events and interact with those who I interact with so often online. Putting a face to the name is such a simple yet profound experience.
And being right with some great artists, and that's why what makes Marfa so special. Do you agree with that? What do you get out of a Marfa weekend? I think maybe we'll start with that.
No, I love that. I feel like it's nice because it's such a trek to get here. It's like 3 hours from the nearest regional airport. So if you're here, you really want to be here. And I think being here with folks that are, I guess, dedicated enough to make the journey is really rewarding because, they care about the generative art. They either make it, they collect it. Most of them do some form of both. And I think it's always the one place where I have probably the most interesting conversations about the space and about the medium any year. And I also love what's going on around us here. I guess the camera can't see it, but various artists have set up physical activations where they're bringing their digital work into the real world, usually with some sort of interactive component. Luke's actually running an embroidery shop over there.
I
He's
know.
been kind enough to
Matt's
step away.
running it right now.
Matt's running it right now. Maybe you'll talk about it
Matt
some
and
more.
Esther.
Matt and Esther.
We'll have to switch. Get
Yeah.
Matt over here at 3, maybe if
Yeah.
he comes over.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, that's really what I look forward to.
How about you? Same stuff.
Same stuff for sure. Also, I just love Marfa. I think it's
Beautiful town.
it's a great place to be. This is definitely like a microcosm with all the people. But I just have a lot of fun coming back here. Also checking out Chinati, 2D ballroom. Like, there's just a really great environment here.
Yeah, exactly. It's also the only place that it's acceptable for me to cosplay as a cowboy. So, that's
It's a good look.
That's what I
You're
come
doing
for.
great. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
Ooh, looking forward to this year. Honestly, just reconnecting with the artists and the community here. last year was my first trip to Marfa. Lars and I had a fun experience being in the same camper community, and that's how we actually first met. So that was great.
What experience?
I know, right? And I'm not one for campers, but it was pretty fun. To experience that in Marfa, no less, is something that just adds to the experience of being out here in the desert. And as Lars mentioned, the trek out here alone is already that high barrier to entry for those who really care about art and what Art Blocks stands for in this space. So seeing the turnout this year, same with last year, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. And I guess as like artists, do you see why this has become kind of an artist haven or a place where artists can go and work on their work? Do you see, I guess when you come here, do you feel inspired in a way? Do you feel like I'm just curious of your opinion as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I totally get it. It's a beautiful part of the country. I think the drive out here, this time, I don't know why, but my GPS took me totally through the middle of nowhere. I was on a dirt road for part of the drive, but it was right during sunset. Like the sun was coming down over the sides of the mountain. The sides of the ground were lit up pink and purple, and there were cows kicking up dust. And I was maybe a little woozy after a 3-hour drive, but feeling pretty inspired. And if I had the time, I could totally see myself spending a few months out here, trying to soak in the environment and use that for inspiration.
Well, I guess Glitch has their residency, and now I guess Art Block's starting their residency. So maybe one of you will get that chance. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I've done that residency actually.
Oh yeah.
I mean, kind of. I was kind of like the pilot.
Didn't do my research.
The first one.
Call me out, Luke. Make me look bad on my own show.
No. 2 summers ago, I was able to be here for like a month at the Art Block's house. They have like a little casita in the back.
Yep.
And it was awesome. It was like so good. A really fruitful, creative time, I think, for me. And I think it's something with the like space that you get, being in such a remote place, and obviously, 2, being surrounded by so many other people interested in art. Like I think, there's Judd definitely changed Marfa a lot when he decided to move his studio here, better and worse. But I think there is a really like wonderful community who's really actively interested in art. Kind of everywhere you go, there's like the coffee shops will have an art section and stuff like that. So it's a great environment.
I was talking with, I ran into a local kind of community member last night at the Douglas exhibition and was just talking about how, this town is just so well known for art and people are interested in it. And also people are interested in, because it's a lot of traditional art, and traditional mediums. But, I think they're really interested about art blocks and generative art and digital art. And it was great to be able to talk about, when they were asking questions about, what's this weekend about, things like that, and really educating them on generative art. And, it's a great opportunity to do that at these type of weekends where we're all together. And, we do maybe bring in people that are not necessarily coming here for the community. They maybe just be in Marfa, and they get to learn about generative art and our space and crypto and all that kind of thing. So yeah. So you both are, I guess you both are signed to Artix Code. That's exciting. I think I wanted to ask both of you, like, what is it? Because a lot of generative artists, they don't go with a, they don't seek representation, right? They kind of just do their own thing, or, what have you really gained, from working with, being represented by Artix Code, and like, what does that give to you as an artist and in your process?
I'm happy to start. I'm a total art noob. I came into the art space not knowing anything about it, and I was very aware of that.
Yeah.
So when I had the chance to work with them, and I got the understanding that they're serious, they understand the space, and they know what opportunities to take and which ones to look out for, having them as a guiding voice was invaluable. And what I then learned after signing with them is that they're also way better at selling my work than I am. I really don't enjoy the process of selling my work. I feel like if it were up to me, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'd just give it away for free.
Yeah.
You heard it first. No.
I'd love to hear that.
It's
So-
live, so we can't cut it out. No.
Oh wait. no.
Just kidding.
And having them to represent my work in a way that I feel is both
important.
thoughtful and professional, I think is really important and really helped me out. So
It's hard. I mean, I'm really amazed of how many artists actually like do try to do that, where it's very different from, making art and selling your art is completely different skills almost, like it's a different skill set a lot of times. And I think some artists have crossover where they can do it, but it's a different skill set, and I think it's great that, you recognize that and you went with such a, great representation as Art X Code. It was like they're like legends, So yeah. Similar for you?
Yeah, I think there's no replacement for like their experience in our world and in selling art. And I think it is, like you're saying, a different skill set. So it's really nice to be able to lean on them for those kinds of questions. And also, I think similar to, in a weird way, kind of similar to the time I spent in Marfa, like these kinds of events are amazing because it brings everybody together and there's like such a direct one-to-one contact. And then also times like in Marfa and times when you can kind of deep dive on just the work are really important. And getting both of those is crucial, I think. And so I think without Art X Code, I think it might be harder to find some of those breaths of air where you can trust that they are managing what needs to be managed in terms of the daily kind of operations, but can focus and have a little bit of space that lets you, it's kind of a very useful buffer sometimes, but not one that is impermeable at all. Like you can also really get to meet people, which is the most special part, is like meeting collectors, having conversations.
Yeah. For sure.
Seeing how everything resonates.
It's awesome. So, Philip, you've collected a lot of pieces and things like that.
Yep.
You said you collect, you have in your collection Luke and Lars. I do as well. I'm a little bit of both. I like to collect a lot and I create art as well. So, and I really enjoy doing that. But I think what made you choose to have Lars and Luke in your collection? Like what gets you excited about their work?
That's a fantastic question. So harkens back to the question you asked earlier about what inspires you about being in Marfa, right? But the inspiration of being in Marfa is, as a collector, is the discovery and the connection that you are able to make with artists. And online, there's just so much noise. And it's hard to parse out what really speaks to you and why it speaks to you. But when you're able to collect, connect, and cultivate these relationships in person, it gives me more of an emotional attachment, gives more meaning behind the pieces that I'm looking at on a computer screen. So for Lars and Luke in particular, hearing the story behind their inspiration, behind their art, in particular, through the Proof Collective and seeing Notes from a Neutron Star, and then Emily Chia's curation with Venus Over Manhattan. That's how I was able to first learn about Luke and Lars. And then by hearing their storytelling and then meeting them here, it's, it closes that loop. So from a collector's standpoint, there are all these facets that you may not think about when you're just simply looking at art on a screen. But once you make that connection, it's hard to shake that. And it's hard to let go of that feeling when you're meeting someone.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of interested too, because just, we're on this side of, I won't say Art X Code explicitly, but like just representation in general. Sure. And I hear it's so special for me to be talking with the collectors too, But I wonder also, like, what is the best kind of case scenario? Because there's something I think maybe for the like professionalism of representation. Is there like a way to do both in your mind? Like, is it a mix of both, or I don't know. This is not a clear question, but I'm just kind of curious.
I feel that when I first hear and learn about a new collection that's being released, I always love to hear from the artists themselves what drove them to create these outputs. And then from there, I take a very deep look inside all the variety, so to speak, and see whether or not it speaks to me. Now, of course, that's all happening when everything else is going on X and in Discord. So that's why having the in-person connection is more meaningful, I feel. And as a collector who also tends to forever hodl art, so I'm very selective with the pieces I choose to acquire because I'm not here to flip, so to speak. I'm here to really collect because I enjoy and then hopefully display in my home and in my office in the future. So, with you, Luke, right? The acquisition of my first plot number 2, that was the first time I actually split an artwork, or the physical and the token. So, a dear friend of mine, Chris B1, we were able to split that, and that also deepens the connection to the artwork because I'm sharing it with someone that I value very much so in real life. So, things like that also play a role, and I understand that from the artist's perspective, maybe it's hard to capture all of that because that is not in your control, so to speak. It's really just from the collector's side. But, if there's some way that you are able to capture that, I think that's what's special.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear too, and I'm sure for Lars and Luke, you don't really get to hear from your collectors, it's cool that we're all here and you're able to kind of tell them, here, and they get to hear from you, someone that collects, their work. I'd love to dive into a couple projects from each of you. One, I want to talk about 7 Factorial. I think it's maybe an under the radar project for you. I don't know how many people know about that project. I think they do, but
I do.
That project for me was something special, though. I think it is a special project, and I'd love for you to talk about the origins of that. And for me personally, it's just a very simple project. And I think a lot of your work is very simple, but I mean that in a really good way. It just feels like it's digested to a point where you have resisted, as an artist myself, there's a huge temptation to overcomplicate and to bring in just things to that, I think in the moment you think you're going to add diversity to it, but a lot of times they just end up taking away from that core vision that you started with, right? And I think you do a great job with that. And I think 7 Factorial is one example of that, where it has a very core vision. Yeah.
That means a lot. Thank you. No, I definitely, first speaking somewhat generally, I love to think about my art in a very concept-oriented way. I think I try to start with an idea and then work towards that idea. I feel that if all I'm doing is making a pretty picture, I get bored very quickly. I think I can't bring myself to just make something beautiful, because I think the more I look at it, the more I get like that blindness to what the original idea was. And if I don't have a concept to return to, then I get lost very quickly. With the project 7 Factorial, for those not familiar, I've for a while been really interested in art that looks at combinatorial systems. So I love to make systems of rules that have constraints on them, and you can enumerate all possible states that are available within those constraints. And one of the first projects that I did in that vein was called Rubber Band Folds, and it's looking at all the ways that if you have a rubber band, you can put a certain number of creases into it. And it starts very simple. If you have no creases, it's just a circle. If you put one crease into it, it looks kind of like a horseshoe. But then once you add 2 creases, you get some more interesting squiggles.
I love that project because it's something that I like. have done with a rubber band.
Yeah, we've all
and
done
you
that.
just can't. Seeing it kind of to fruition, like completion, like that, is so inspiring. Sorry.
No, I love that. I mean, what really got me excited about it was that you can sort of imagine 1, 2, 3 creases, but then once you go past that, all of a sudden, you can't really possibly with a pen and paper write them all out. And once you see them put in front of you, you realize that in this project that has no inherent randomness, it's not just deterministic, but it's entirely static in how it's produced. You still get all this delightful variety and all these outputs that you never could have imagined. And I think that it sort of taps into something very core in generative art that I feel is always this focus on randomness. And I think that while that's very important, I think it's not the only way to make generative art. And in the Project 7 Factorial, I think the idea was maybe even a bit more simple. It was really just looking at permutations, and it was looking at all 5,040 ways you can permute 7 items.
Yeah.
And there were sort of 2 pieces in tandem. One of them listed out the 5,040, and it's kind of fun to see the giant sheet with them laid out like that. And then I minted 19 pieces with proof, and they were shown at 2 of them were shown at Venus over Manhattan through proof, highlighting those individual permutations.
Yeah, and did 2 of the same ones come out, or it wasn't exactly like that, or was that true?
Yeah, 2 of the same ones came out. So the idea was we would stick to the sort of canonical generative narrative, and when minting those 19, pick from those 5,040, and there's this wonderful paradox called the birthday paradox, where it says if you have n people in a room, how likely is it that 2 of them share a birthday? And you think like you need a lot of people in a room for them to likely share a birthday, but it only takes like 20 or something to have over a 50% chance, something like that. Yeah. Which with 5,040 combinations, you need more than 20, but with 19 somehow, it was like a 1% chance or a 2% chance.
Yeah,
you got 2 of the same ones. So there's a set of twins in the outputs, and I think that's kind of delightful.
That was amazing though that it came out like that, and it is interesting how the mind, with those probabilities like that, the birthday paradox, it seems like so much more unlikely than it actually is. It's something about scale and the way our brains are built that it doesn't really compute that well, which is really cool, interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. And Luke, for you, I want to, I'm pretty biased because I own this piece. I was going to ask about it. And, full disclosure, I own a one-of-one by Luke called If You Have Ears, right? And I am just curious about it. I don't think I've ever asked you about it, like the origins behind it. So I'm curious. I mean, I love it. I have it on my wall. I go by it every day. I've lived with it now for, 2 years, 3 years. And it's a really special piece. I think for me, it's something about the colors, but also actually the black in it. It actually has a lot of black in it, but it has colors. And for me, at least in my perspective, it speaks to hope in some of, the darkness almost. It seems like that's what it speaks to me a little bit, is that there's hope there.
I love that, yeah. No, that's a special piece for me too, and I'm so glad that It's You who has that. That one, I can just describe it quickly too. It's kind of like a
I think I have
hedge.
screen share. I should be.
Oh, great.
Hold on. And that's not you. That's Vera Molnar.
Wow, amazing.
And we could probably pull up 7 Factorial too.
As a quote.
If you have ears, Luke. I don't know if I can find it. Let's see.
It might be harder to find online.
Yeah.
Massage.
Okay.
But I can. It's just like it's kind of a grid of flowers.
Maybe
which
I post it. Maybe it'll come up if I put my name in here.
Oh yeah, I'll post. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Whatever.
Together they make kind of like a hedge, kind of a monolithic thing. But I feel like so much of generative art and generative artists' first inspiration is nature, and seeing like the systems at work there, a flower being like a great example of that. Let's see if you got it here.
I'll get it up.
Try just, yeah.
Here we go.
Okay.
Sweet. All
So the flowers are seated in kind of a grid structure. And yeah, nature being such a inspiration in that kind of systematic approach where simple rules, relatively simple rules, but create an astonishing amount of complexity. And the kind of intrinsic rule, or like the kind of maybe DNA code that a plant or a flower is following, combined with the randomness in its circumstance of rain or sun and like these kinds of things being stepped on as a seedling, makes such a difference. And I think I've always learned a lot by trying to replicate nature in that way. But I think even more important than that, and the reason I like this piece is because those attempts to replicate a system in nature will always fall short in some way. But I think actually those differences is where I can learn the most. And the reason I like generative art, one of the main reasons, is I think in creating the system, I learned so much about the thing that I'm trying to describe. And so those failings, seeming failings, are the most compelling part of it for me. So the flowers here have an interesting kind of petal extension algorithm where it's not just seeding them in a circle, but they'll actually like detect overlaps of petals and then try to place one there, because that's always kind of the method I would use drawing flowers as a kid. Is I'd like draw two petals and then where they meet, like maybe another one happens there. But then that causes these kinds of long strings of petals that extend, and kind of the funky ways that it messes up, that you see the difference between the system that I've made and the actual way a flower works and exists.
Yeah.
That difference is always one of the most compelling things for me.
Yeah, it's
That's what I like about this
I love
piece.
it. And you also sent me with it a generative tapestry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a pen blot, and then also jacquard loom weave, which similar. The reason that I also like that weave is because there's the one side which like does its best to replicate, the bitmap with different threads. You're losing some information, but really my favorite is the back side of that weave. All the colors change in this really interesting way, like kind of inverses of the other side, but kind of not. And I think that like back end messiness is a part of this piece too, in a way that I don't know, that I like that manifestation of it, because it has those kinds of frills on the edge of it, but also it has that front back like system and difference between the system.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks so much for explaining it. It's an amazing piece. I really enjoy it.
I'm glad that I talk about it.
I'm curious, like Lars, he described kind of his, what ties his work together. What do you think like ties your work together? Like, it doesn't have to have anything that ties it together, but I'm just saying, do you have a vision of what you think kind of, as you're working on work, ties it together? Themes that are recurring,
Yeah, I think there are definitely some themes, and for a long time, I was also motivated a lot in like making physical things with algorithms. I think that the thing that I'm most interested in is our different concepts of selfhood and like where that line is drawn, and I think algorithms are a really great way to describe that. There's kind of this moment when there's kind of these two moments that I find really interesting. Like say if you're walking at night and there's like a weird shape in the distance and you're like, maybe that's a tree or maybe it's a person, and you kind of approach it weirdly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's a tree. And you just totally move it to another part of your brain and you don't think about it anymore at all. It's totally moved from like this side with self to the side without self. And on the other end, you walk into a room and you think there's like a bunch of clothes on a chair, and then all of a sudden it starts talking to you, and you're like, oh my God, that's a person. And it gives you such a shock, and it totally changes your state there. And I think those two seeming sides where we like quickly will move something one direction or another are really interesting to me. And I think what I'm trying to do by making algorithms is walk that line as tight as possible between something which seems to have a kind of autonomy and something that also is not. Because if generative art is like rules and randomness, I think too many rules and we deem something robotic and like really purely a machine. The pen plotters, like we kind of think that, but you can move it, and well, on the other end, if you do something that's too random, we think of it as just chance, like not having any kind of strategy or motivations. Somewhere in between there's like a percolation threshold for selfhood that I'm interested in trying to get somewhere towards, and I think, a long-winded explanation, but that's the theme that I think
it's
is
amazing.
trying to
I think
cut.
like you both are. I'm glad you're both up here. 'Cause I think you're both your work is really connected, but it's also very different. You know, like I think you both approach generative art and the way of creating art in a different way. You know, which I think is kind of amazing. But that you're both like creating. You know, all artists I talk to, and myself included, we all have like. You know, a different process, right? And kind of, and that's what makes art great and generative art great is that it's not all cookie cutter of you know, everybody's process is the same and everyone's inspiration is the same, but we all bring ourselves, you know, our personalities, everything that makes us tick, our backgrounds to our art, and that affects exactly what we're. I think that's success, right? In art is, you know. Are you producing something that you feel communicates who you are and what you feel, right?
Yeah, totally agree. And also, it's funny you say that we have like these kinds of weird connections because I'm working on a project that I want to talk to you about that is kind of related to the permutations and stuff.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So you're gonna.
Is it a secret? If you want to talk, do you want to talk about it now, or
Do you want to talk about it now, or yeah?
I'm happy. I don't want to go on too long,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to. It's like it's a project. This is my first time talking about it too, so forgive any mistakes.
Heard it here, Bear.
It's has to do with haikus.
Cool.
I've been writing like a haiku a day for a
I
while.
love haikus.
Yeah, they're really.
Yeah, I've
they're really
written a
great.
few too. It's
Okay, nice. And
so haikus. So it's
Yeah.
What is it? Is it 5 first, right?
575.
575 exactly.
Five syllables and then 7 syllables and then 5 syllables. And I discovered, I mean, not an amazing discovery, but some numbers, when you speak them aloud in English, a specific way, they're a haiku. So the smallest number that's a haiku like that is 127,117. And if you break that apart syllable by syllable, the breaks are in the right place and everything, where that's a haiku. Lars is checking me. He's got a mind for the details.
I know.
I see him over there.
It's funny because it's just like, you know, like I think like I as an artist, I'm more like towards Luke's side than Lars. Like you approach things very structurally, you know, like, which is awesome. And you know, like it's funny. I feel like Luke, in the sense I get from your art, is you approach things a little more chaotically, you know, and you're a little bit more orderly in your work, and there's no wrong answer to that. You know what I mean? I think artists go on a different. I'm definitely more on the chaotic, like, you know, realm of things. Like I just love abstract expressionism and you know, Pollock and that whole movement of just. You can't even explain it, right? It's like you're just throwing paint on the thing, and there's something raw and like emotional to that I love, you know. But I think it's the other side of it where you really are thinking through, and you know, thinking it in these systematic forms. It's actually reminding me of chess, actually. You know, I don't know if any of you.
I've just been getting into playing chess.
Really?
Chess is
Yeah.
great.
So it's funny in
Duchamp era.
chess. Like I'm not a great player of chess, but I really enjoy playing chess, and
Should play.
I will 100% play with you for sure. But one thing that is interesting about chess is that, there's different styles of players. Granted, nowadays, like you get to the GMs, they're all playing the same nowadays. It's like there's only one, because they're just so good. But historically, there has been more positional players in chess, and there's been more dynamic players, right? Where some people are more positional, meaning they're trying to put themselves in a pretty safe position and evaluating it more. I don't want to say defensively, but more about evaluating just the overall position of the pieces and what is that going to lead me up to going forward in the game. And then you have more other players who are more attacking players or dynamic players where they're actively want to explore sacrifices. They want to explore, more chaotic gameplay that may be higher risk, but also can, result in some craziness, right?
Which are you?
I would say I'm a little bit of both, but I definitely lean towards more of the chaotic because I want to find out what happens, right? Like, it's actually really bad because, like, it's actually a really bad thing, and it's probably affects in my Elo store, is that, like, when I get to a point and I see a sacrifice, I wonder, I just get so curious, I'm like, will this actually work? And I'm like, I think it will work. Screw it, let's try it, and then it ends up that it doesn't work, and I find out that quickly, that I should not have done that. I should have just played positionally and made a safe move and continued on with the game. But I think that just reminded me of that, of art, and I think it applies to a lot of different things in life. But there's no wrong answer to that as well. It's just, again, a style of how we interpret the world and how we create and things like that.
I think that's a really good point, and I'm curious because there is definitely those two sides for art, it seems, or like kind of a spectrum. Do you feel like that could also apply at all to collecting? Like, some collectors may be more methodical, and others are just kind of at their whim.
Yeah, actually, I know several collectors who are extremely meticulous with even the output within a collection that they choose to collect, right? They like a similar aesthetic or a similar trait across different artists and collections. And then there are those more like me where after viewing a piece and hearing the story, I just go with it. And, hearing from the three of you, the creativity behind the perception and also the interpretation of, seemingly innocuous things is really what makes art so beautiful. And from the collector standpoint, coming to Marfa and seeing what the artists are currently working on, because let's face it, the artists you all are the ones that are pushing this space forward each and every step. And collectors, we're here to support you, right? Support, collect, and, shout it from the rooftop, so to speak. But coming to Marfa and seeing, what you're working on next, Lars, on display at Art Block's gallery with tokens of perseverance.
So good.
Luke, what you're doing with Stitchables and working locally with the Marfa community, and seeing how you're using your artistic side to pursue different endeavors to push the space forward. I think that's extremely fascinating, and that's really what makes Marfa such a special place. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lars, do you want to talk about your project here like a little bit?
Yeah, gladly. Actually,
awesome.
If you want, you can pull it up.
Yeah, let's do that.
If you go to lars.computer/secret
Great URL.
/artblocks-2024.
Wait, so there's more under
Lars
the secret?
There's a lot in secret. Yep.
Wow, I just got to figure out what to put at the end.
/secret.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, don't even think about it, Luke.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is one algorithm away from being broken over.
/secret.
Okay, /secret.
I'm brute forcing Lars.computer
Yeah,
/secret
exactly.
/artblocks.
Are you XCopy?
I wish.
That's what XCopy would say.
It's also what I would say, but I'm not. /artblocks-2024. And there's a dash between art blocks and, yeah.
That one?
I think that should be it.
It's loading.
Did we do it?
It's loading something.
Oh, yeah, this is the output
that
right
the
here.
output?
That's it. It's
Hey
all
everyone,
white.
there you go.
This is the next
classic,
project right
demo
here.
effect, exactly. Here's the
Let's
joke.
see, is there any?
It's actually the first time I've seen it not run.
Oh, token data not defined.
Oh, classic.
Oh.
Okay, I'm not going to demo
Yeah.
it. This is clearly the production code that depends on the blockchain.
Yes, the token
that's
data. Can we?
Not there. If you just go to the art block site, it's actually
Okay.
on there now, and that'll work. But while you load it up, it's a project I've been working on for a bit over a year now, and it's.
Is it in the studio or where is it?
I think it'll be in this group here. It's under the curated. I think there's a nice little way to explore the outputs too.
Hmm.
It's part of that top. Go up.
Oh, Discover. Oh, here it is. Awesome. Yeah. I really like this. When I want you to talk about it. Here we go. Wall True. You want to
That's
talk
it?
about that
Yeah,
one? Okay.
yeah. Let's see if we can.
This is beautiful. Yes.
Let's
awesome.
generate another one. So this one's been seen before.
When I saw this in the Art Blocks gallery,
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
well, granted you're one of the 3 artists, but I knew this one was yours. I was like, ah.
No, I'd love to
Awesome.
hear
Beautiful.
that. But it came
This
from.
is the type of art that I would want to display in my office in the future.
Oh, that's so
For
sweet.
especially for the kids to like be able to really absorb themselves in.
Yeah.
Also helps to honestly relieve anxiety. It's very calming.
I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. No, they sort of come from a fascination with infinity, and growing up, thanks to my parents, really, I was exposed to some mathy circles, and I was always really curious about what infinity meant because it was full of paradoxes, and no explanation that anyone could give would really take hold because I feel like there is no really intuitive meaning for it because it's not inherently a physical thing. It's not something we can represent physically, but it's something we can and actually need to rely on in mathematics. And really modern math, probability, calculus, statistics, countless fields depend on representing the unrepresentable. And in particular, in computer science, this idea of unboundedness shows up all over the place. And sort of with that as a seed in the back of my mind, when I went to Venice for Bright Moments and I saw the glasswork and I saw the mosaics, I was really captivated, and I had this idea for how to make this work and how I think I could make it run in real time. And I started programming on the project. And what it's doing is it's a substitution system. So before it starts running, it sort of builds a grammar of shapes and substitutions. And it continually grows the shapes and replaces them once they reach a certain size.
It's amazing. You can just like stare at this for hours. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have stared at it for hours to make sure that it runs for hours. And it goes on forever and ever. And what's interesting to think about, too, is that while it is infinite in a sense, it also can't be, because any system it runs on, any computer we have, anything in the universe is inherently finite. And even though it's finite and this can run for probably billions of years before repeating, I think it kind of just helps put into context and show a sense of scale for how unimaginably large the infinite is. And I feel like it's
amazing, and I love how I love how it's moving out, but it's also moving in. You know, it's shrinking and growing at the same time, which is just an amazing effect. You know, it's like something I don't think I've seen before, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun, because it has to be growing at the same rate it's shrinking, because it's always the same size.
Yes, and I love how you made the choice to have that border to allow that to happen. You know, is the border is it the same size border every time, or is there different? Is that one of the variabilities? Wow, look at
No,
this.
it's the same size border.
That's beautiful.
It's I think what I found when I cropped it is it felt kind of claustrophobic, and I feel like a little bit dizzying, I think, to actually see it get bigger and bigger like this. I feel like the fact that that the piece is disappearing off the edge helps it be a little more grounded. It feels a little less unnerving. Like it is, in the end, something finite.
And also, is it, because I saw it expands to it's to whatever aspect ratio you display it on, correct?
Yep, that's right.
So if you had it on I mean, we're in the view now, but if you had it on a 16 by 9 screen or something like that, like they had in the Art Box Gallery, which is beautiful, it expands to that, and that border is the same all around, but you're filling that space in the middle with the art, which is amazing. I love when artists do that because I think it's just allows for it to be displayed in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different screen sizes, et cetera,
Appreciate that. Yeah. I think the other part of the Venice trip that really stuck with me was seeing Andreas Giesen's work up on the screens and how enchanting it was, not only for myself, but really anyone that walked up, and was immediately captivated by his textual representations there. And I think I
wow,
wanted
look at
something that would
the
run forever.
patterns. The patterns are amazing.
Yeah.
So what is some of the variability to this? Like, is it different patterns like that where they're repeating and things like that?
So there's no pre-computed patterns. However,
Wow,
the various pieces.
that's pretty cool. Like it just completely like.
Yeah.
It's very, like you said, mosaic. I think you mentioned mosaic, but I have that. It has that feel to it. It does have stained glass feel to it. Maybe talk a little bit about like all the curated pieces now are coming with a physical component. So what's your physical component for this?
Yeah, I've got two different physical components. So one, my wife is a knitter, and she's really into textiles. So I've kind of wanted to do something with a loom for a while. Also, seeing Luke's work, I think during the Lars and Luke show that we did, seeing the
That was so fun.
the weaving that you had really stuck with me. So when they said we're doing a physical, I said, great, let's do something with a jacquard loom. So there's like a very large chunk of fabric that's available for sale that you can do whatever you want with. I think they, to sort of demonstrate the possibilities, they cut them up into pillows, and they're sitting in the gallery, and they're kind of fun and a bit smaller, but they're also hanging as very large curtains, which you can, I guess, do what you want with. There's also some watercolor pieces, which are outputs from this algorithm at various time points, made physical with a pen plotter and a watercolor paintbrush. And the total plot time for each of them is something like 40 to 50 hours.
Wow.
So it's over the course of 5 days, continually mixing and adjusting paint. They're made, and they're, I think, something like 24 by 16 inches. So not huge, but big enough where they sort of sit nicely on a wall. They're up for display in the Marfa gallery.
Those watercolors have always been, your watercolor work in general has always been like my favorite, like such an inspiration to me, honestly.
This is great. It's great to look at this in the Art Box gallery. It's amazing. When is this being released?
It's so these are going up for sale, I think December 10th.
Yeah.
The watercolors are available now. I think there's still one left for sale.
Okay.
In the gallery. And the fabric, I think, goes for sale December 12th.
That's great. And Zach Lieberman and Iskra is also in this kind of run of curated that is the next one coming up, and all three projects look amazing, especially in the gallery. And just I love this physical component of adding this extra dimension to the digital pieces, which is pretty amazing. So I love the direction that Art Blocks is headed with curated. So.
Same. I'm honestly humbled to be alongside Iskra and Zach. I've been long-time admirers, and I kind of have to pinch myself.
Exactly. Yeah, they're incredible artists. Zach and Iskra is both. I really like Iskra's pieces. With the inks. Again, it goes back to that. This is amazing. That core vision. You can totally see the core vision there. And Zach, same thing. Zach's a legend in generative art. And in, this community, I think all of us artists look up to him and all that he's done throughout all the years. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think this was a great session just to talk through. I'm sure the people at home enjoyed it. We'll cut it up and put it out there. But congrats on all the success, and looking forward to what you guys create in the future and collect in the future.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here. This is great.
No, it's definitely Philip. You are a great collector. People should check out your gallery, your collection for sure, because you really do think through your collection, which I think is special. So, for sure.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to guys.
All right, we'll be maybe back with some more artists, but we'll see who can stick around. But later.
Peace.
Be back. Just one last thing. I'm just popping in. I think we're closing up here. It's 3 o'clock, so they're kicking us out of the hall. So I think we're going to call it here for today. But tomorrow, definitely be back. I don't know exactly the time yet, but I'll post on Twitter what time. But great group of guests today. Really excited to chat with everybody. That was some great conversations, and looking forward to getting some more artists up here and collectors and community members up here tomorrow and doing it again. So thanks you all for tuning in, and we'll have some more content tomorrow.